I come here to listen to other points of view.
Yeah.
So I'd rather not be on camera.
Well, we can hide your face if you choose to.
Oh yeah. Hide my face.
We'll do that. Don't worry.
So, okay, you got the historical side we just discussed. What about the theological side?
Absolutely the same case. Essentially, the claim in Islam is that theologically Islam is the next step to Christianity. That's the claim. You would have even heard about this term called the Last Testament. They call the Old Testament, not in everyday parlance, but they use this to give the idea that they are the next step to Jesus Christ. You know what the problems are? The Bible does not allow such a next step. The biblical view, the Christian view, the New Testament view is very clear. It is Jesus and Jesus who is the center of the plan for salvation for the entire world throughout time. Throughout time. It is the Messiah. If you go to the Old Testament, you would get the same idea without some of them agreeing to the idea that Jesus is the Christ. The word Christ is the word Messiah. The Jews also have this idea that when the Messiah comes, that's the end of times. You would have heard that idea. So, the biblical view is very clear. The Messiah, or in other words, the Christ, is the end. Is the end. When you have found who the Christ is, period. There is no further Tom, Dick and Harry that anyone expects. That's the theology of the entire Bible. And this is why no Jew, even according to the fancy Islamic fabricated story, the Jews of Muhammad's own time rejected Muhammad. Why? Because they don't have a space for him. There's no vacancy to be filled. And therefore when he says, I have a vacancy to be filled and I am from the line of Ishmael, and they said, I'm sorry, but we don't care about you. They went away. Why? Because they didn't have a vacancy to be filled. So Islam
also rejected Jesus as well, the Jews.
Some of the Jews, the very first church is Jewish. The very first church is Jewish. And even today, and of course I do appreciate there are many Jews who have rejected throughout time, and still do. But if you go and ask them, the question they try to answer is this: whether Jesus is the Christ or not. That is the question they answer. Please, this is very important point, Hanif. The question in their minds is he the Christ? Because in their minds it's clear, it is the Christ who is the end. There is no argument about that. The Christ is the end. No argument about that. But the only question, in other words, there is a vacancy. And that vacancy is for a Christ. Is for the Messiah, the end-time Messiah, the end-time Savior, the end-time anointed one of God. There is a vacancy. But the question is, who is it? And the rejectors have rejected because they think Jesus is not that. You see what I'm saying? But the office hasn't been rejected. In other words, Christians and Jews would agree. Jews who have rejected Christianity. Bear in mind also, you need to clearly bear in mind that the very first followers of Jesus were Jewish. The very first church was Jewish.
He was Jewish himself.
He was Jewish himself. And therefore the church, the very first church was Jewish. For about 50 years, 60, 70 years after the time of Jesus Christ, the most of the followers were Jewish. Tremendous numbers. To an extent, we find Roman resources today. When you go through the Roman resources, official Roman resources, historians writing, you find that they don't even distinguish between Jews and Christians. Because to them, a Christian is a Jew.
Yeah, because a lot of Christians were Jewish heretics, they call them.
Ethnically Jews. So in other words, the point is most Jews of that time believed. You need to bear that in mind, because otherwise you might get a bit confused. Most Jews believed in Jesus Christ at that time. Some rejected, and since then many have rejected throughout time. I agree. But how many Jews believed in Muhammad at the point of his start? No one. Even according to the fabricated narration, the Jews in Medina, what happened to them? Did they begin following Muhammad? No, of course not. Because why? Because they did not have a vacancy. The Messiah was the vacancy.
That is a lie. Stop
You see, I told you earlier.
lying.
I, I told.
Tell him why.
Stop lying.
We can do one or two things, Hanif. We're trying to have an intelligent conversation.
How many they were with Jesus?
I don't think he's in. I don't think he's informed enough. Can you, Hanif, whenever you are here at the park, try and follow Sam. Try and, Hanif, please focus here.
He lying about my prophet.
Hanif, please focus. Try and follow Sam at the park, week in, week out. He doesn't have the credibility and audacity to stand in front of a camera and debate with someone. And debate with someone. He's a cameraman. He'll go around, he'll go deal with the camera, but not challenge. You know when he will come in? Only when he figures out. Only when he. Hanif, 1 second. He will come in. He will come in only when he figures out that there is a discussion which is honest and open, and people are listening and so on, and he comes to disturb. That's all he comes to do. All right.
I was here.
All
I
right.
heard you lying about my prophet. I come in.
What was the
And
lie?
I'm here.
What was the
Lie
lie?
you said that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has no follower. Okay.
Did I ever say that?
Sorry.
Hanif, did I? No, but do you see?
No.
He calls me a liar. Do you see who the liar is?
Has no follower in the first time when Jesus has follower. That's what he said.
A few options here. One, he can't listen. Another, he can't hear.
Can you tell me, did you
Another,
say that
even
when
if
you
he
said
hears
that?
and listens,
Okay,
he doesn't understand.
Rephrase what you said.
I'm not here to talk to you, Sam.
Rephrase what you said.
I'm not here to talk to you, Sam.
I'm
not here to talk to you, Sam. I'm talking to Hanif. If you respect your brother, please.
What did he say?
So,
What he said was when the Prophet Muhammad
all right.
to the Jewish people, they didn't follow him. They rejected him. That's what he said.
That's what he said.
Well, yeah,
It's not that is a lie.
The Jews.
When
The Jews. How many Jews of the first of the time of Muhammad followed Muhammad?
Yeah, ask him.
How many Jews in the time of
Yeah. How many tribes? How many sub-tribes followed Muhammad?
in all of his life, or only in the
Well,
first
his
time?
life is very brief. Yeah, please go on. Take the entire life if you want.
There are thousands.
Thousands.
Yes, thousands.
How many tribes? How many sub-tribes?
How many tribes?
Yes.
The people, they didn't follow their tribe. When they follow Islam, they come to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They don't follow their tribe.
How many tribes
There are
followed
too many
Muhammad?
examples.
How many
There are
sub-tribes
too many
followed
examples.
Muhammad?
One
How
of
many?
them,
How many?
One of them, he come to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he asked him, this river is full of sheep, okay? And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to him, do you like it? What he said to him, yes. He told him, take it. When he took it, he went to his people and they told him, oh people, Muhammad, he gives
Hanif.
you many things. I'm
Look.
answering.
Sam is an expert in hearsay nonsense. Sam is an expert in hearsay nonsense. If he doesn't have an answer, he won't struggle. You know why? Sam never struggles at the park. You know why? Hanif, Sam never struggles at the park. Do you know why? Do you know why? Do you know why Sam never struggles?
You see why?
Well, I know him.
Why you not let me
I
finish?
know him. You know why Sam never struggles?
Why you not let me finish? How I'm struggling?
He never
I'm
struggles
answering.
because
I'm
he
answering.
makes up lies
I'm answering.
as he
I'm
goes
answering.
along.
I'm answering.
So you can ask him any question, pull out a hair.
I'm answering.
Pull out his magic stuff. Pull out this.
Show you. That should show you.
Absolute nonsense.
About the historical.
So,
Muslim
Sam,
historical.
if you are so clued up, please answer me the question I have.
You're asking another question. Can you show me now how many followers
What
of
year
you
is
they
it?
follow Jesus? Go ahead.
Sam, what year?
How many
What
follow
year
Jesus? I
is it
answer
today
only.
in
My
the
question
Islamic
to you.
calendar?
My question to you.
All right,
My
Hanif,
question to
unfortunately,
you.
he has done
My
what he has
question to
done,
you.
which is he
How many they follow
stopped
Jesus?
an
You
intelligent
ask me about
conversation.
it. I answer.
And that is the aim of
Now,
Sam.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Would you like to see today in the park a Muslim who yet again doesn't engage with the details of an argument? Again,
Show me.
here we
Show
present
me.
to you Sam.
Show me.
I'm going to ask him a particular question today. My dear friends,
That's what they present to you.
I am going to read one of the earliest available archaeological artifacts.
Can you answer my question?
One of the earliest available archaeological artifacts I am going to read to you today.
Okay.
And when I read to you, what I am also going to say is that
How much is a coward? He's a coward.
one of who you would call a caliph,
You answer a question. He didn't let me finish.
one of
I'm
you
asking my question.
who call
My question.
him a caliph. Have you heard the name Muawiyah, my dear friend?
All the disciples
Muawiyah, have you heard the name?
all the disciples were Jews. For the
Have you heard the name Muawiyah?
Give me a name.
all the disciples.
Yes, are you a Muslim, sir?
Give me a name.
Okay, please join in, sir.